Hello and welcome back to another news video for Final Fantasy XIV with me, Meoni. Today, we've got lots of stuff to talk about with 6.3, the patch that everyone is excited for because it's absolutely bursting, laden with things to do, be that deep dungeons, storyline, alliance raid, trials. Need I go on? You probably already know how big this patch is. So, basically, I went over to the Final Fantasy XIV subreddit Discord because there is an unofficial translation by the wonderful people over there. A link in the description will obviously take you to that Discord. People on that team, such as Aluna Minori, have posted very helpful, friendly translations and summary translations of all of the information from the 6.3 media outlets, including Famitsu, which have been posted on other sites, but this was an incredibly helpful resource, so please give all of your support to those people. Where credit is due, I believe the subreddit Discord community team is top-notch, honestly. So let's go through these points then. So once again, thank you to the subreddit Discord. So Myths of the Realm, the God Realm of Happiness Eurosign, which is obviously God's Revel, lands tremble. The previous 24-man raid Aglaia was well received, they say, far above what Yoshi P expected. So this is all kind of a bit disjointed information, bits of trivia, and also some heavy news as well. The 12 Eorzean deities are in existence that, quote, the Eorzeans love and revere so much they can't help themselves, end quote. So the developers are maintaining that tension for this tier as well. This will also mean they're retaining the festival feel of the tier, just like before. Next up we have, there are deities who are beautiful and cute, that's a quote, and there will also be deities who are, quote, cool/awesome, but relentless in their attacks, end quote. Since each opponent you face has a clear direction in what they're trying to portray for their concept, players will be able to enjoy a rich amount of variety in battle. And apparently this last point here on that Alliance raid regarding Nofika, on whether she will likely appear according to that illustration in particular, the developers want to fulfill the player's expectations, but not promising something that goes way above and beyond on that matter. And if you are charmed by her, you'll be in trouble, so be careful. End quote. So that's an interesting sort of almost a teaser. If you're charmed by her, you'll be in trouble. Instantly, things that spring to mind in my mind are things like, obviously, you know, Lakshmi with that whole charming thing. Yes, and sort of like mind control perhaps, and you know, being taken in by beauty sort of thing. Whether that will be a mechanic or if they're just throwing a bone there, I have absolutely no idea, but it's very exciting. Even loosely describing these things is tantalizing, isn't it, for speculation. So now we have a section on the new ultimate for 6.3, because our 5th ultimate fight is going to make its debut, I think in 6.3, is it 3.5 or 3.2, something like that. It's in the 6.3 series. And they say, the theme for this ultimate doesn't have that much of a twist. So if most players predicted it has to be this, then it should be fine to think that way. So a lot of people have been thinking if it's going to be something related to Omega. I have no idea, but apparently whatever you predicted, it's basically that. Yoshi P will provide demonstration on how the experience is during the upcoming Letter from a Producer Live, which of course is tomorrow, the 23rd. We'll have a summary of that stuff tomorrow, just after the live letter, so excited for that. The rewards for this will be titles, weapons, and an adventurer plate, so this is something they've done for the other ultimates. Regarding the weapon, Yoshi P has already instructed the developers that since we have the next ultimate, you need to consider on the visual effects, their design, and the glow that shows the difference between the two pieces of content during DSR's development stage. So expect something quite probably impressive, honestly, and quite interesting. It will once again reward where players can be proud to show off. Oh, like an adventurer plate. Oh, okay. Yoshi P himself is pretty fond of the design, so those who got the weapon from the upcoming ultimate may evoke some form of jealousy. Okay, well, that's fine. As long as they put in adventurer plates for, other people in the game, for different, sources of access, then I don't see a problem with that personally. They look really cool. Currently, they consider DSR to be the hardest among all, and they're not thinking of overtaking that in difficulty. So you can expect something more akin, maybe speculation towards like Ultimate or something. I don't know. We'll see. It'll probably be the same as DSR. They can't tell you how long the battle will last in length, but they are not going to make it extremely short. Maybe around DSR's length, which is a prediction, apparently. The person who is handing Ultimate this time will be the designer who planned the bosses for Criterion Dungeon Savage. He's also involved in the production. They mentioned the designer is assigned to work on the final boss, and designers that worked on past Savage 4th floor bosses as well as experienced in creating Ultimate content will be the designers of the first 2 bosses, meaning the Ultimate has multiple designers instead of one this time. So something to take from that is, instead of it being just one person in charge of the whole thing, they've tried to bring on multiple experienced people with the previous hard bosses that we've had in Savage tiers. So it's going to be interesting to see how that meshes together, if that works well together and a transition is seamless, or if it's a noticeable jump in difficulty in places. So I'm excited to see that, at least to watch that. I could never do that personally. This will be the final Ultimate for the 6.x series. They say the story elements for this Ultimate is more toned down and is not as prominent. They're making sure that the story elements and the direction and animation cutscenes will not be overdone for this Ultimate and beyond. Yeah, I'm not surprised they would make that statement, considering how many people were upset about certain events in DSR that we won't talk about with a certain character, and turning back time. Yeah, a little bit disappointing that they put that in an Ultimate. Personally, I think that's something that everyone should be able to see, but at the same time, it is cool. So as long as they don't dumb that extra element down too much, because it is nice to have like an extra carrot on a stick for people. They want to aim for 2 Ultimate releases for the next expansion and beyond, and while they do think so, if they end up investing too much cost on that direction, the possibility of aiming for 2 per expansion may end up highly unfeasible. Oh, interesting. And that was the last point on Ultimate. So it's a balance, isn't it? Trying to get the balance right to keep the people who enjoy that content and can actually do that content, on the edge of their seats and excited, so there's enough for them to work on, but at the same time not just blowing their entire budget on Ultimates, because at the end of the day, regardless of how exciting and amazing those pieces of content are to watch, that's what the majority of the player base are doing. They're watching it, they're not really actually doing it themselves because of the difficulty, or being put off by that difficulty before even trying it. So it does make sense that they need to sort of see where this fits in and make sure that they can at least do 2 per expansion and not make promises they can't fulfill, for example. Right, let's move on to the next deep dungeon, Eureka Orthos, which is its name. Okay, there aren't much story quests for this content, says Yoshi P, but the boss design and the map image may allow the players to feel that there's story elements in them. So it's kind of more like environmental storytelling? Interesting. The text is really well written, so Yoshi P thinks they will manage to solidify it quite well. The episode for this content is quite interesting, so it'd be nice if players can challenge up to the deepest level of the dungeon. Since they received comments that the difficulty of challenging Heaven on High solo is just right, they want to make sure that players will be able to have fun challenging this content solo in the end as well. So probably on the same difficulty sort of spike as Heaven on High, the same kind of experience. That's good. It is in a good place, personally, I think. There will be plenty of new mechanics and elements that players can utilize, and the basic rules don't change. They won't change how this content can be played casually. For players who challenged Deep Dungeon up to this point, they can be rest assured that this is a direct/linear sequel to the previous content. Oh, interesting. If players are looking just to clear the scenario, they will finish this in about 30 floors. It's okay to think of this as basically this works like Heaven on High. Oh, okay, so they're basically just copying that premise, but there might even be the same amount of floors. The reward for solo clears are titles only, just like before. Basically, the line of thought for rewards on this content remains the same, and plenty of item variations are prepared for cases where one obtains them from clearing the scenario, and those who explore the floors deeper. So there'll be mounts, there'll be minions, there will be stuff to collect. There will be probably mounts for successive clears of the place, like there was with the Juday mount, for example, stuff like that, right? That's what you can imagine. Now we move on to Paladin adjustments. The whole job is basically overhauled for 6.3. That's the main objective for the adjustments this time, and they are not adjusting this with the objectives of, quote, working on its rotation, end quote. Buffs that are hard to use compared to other tanks have been adjusted as well. They believe that a large amount of small tricks in this job have been sorted out, and it's definitely made easier to use. The details on the concept behind the changes when overhauling the job, including the combo and whatnot, will be relayed during the live letter. Refer to the articles on the intention behind Paladin changes in the source below. Oh, I see. So they had like a link to a Japanese explain thing for this. It doesn't go into much detail. Basically, they're saving it for the live letter, but a complete overhaul. Ooh, interesting. Next, we're talking about Manderville weapons. So they say you will need to have finished patch 6.35 Manderville quest before working on the next stage of a Manderville weapon. Again, it will be locked behind a Manderville story. The concept for the weapon strengthening this time would be to, quote, be able to exchange for something naturally by saving up the rewards gotten from various contents, end quote. So players don't need to worry too much. So it could be another tomestone sort of thing, or maybe you get tomestones and then you purchase something. It's one of those sorts of steps. So we're not at a light stage yet, so rest assured you could be happy. Since the main playstyle for Final Fantasy XIV right now is players playing multiple jobs, they're planning to balance it so that players can complete the next step of multiple Manderville weapons instead of just one. Oh, I like that, because I'm pretty much a weaponaholic when it comes to this stuff, so very exciting that we can work on two at once, question mark. The visual effects and timing of weapon enhancements will follow the flow of past weapon strengthening content. It's unclear that whether the flow of weapon upgrades and its final item level will be the same as it was in the past. The Hildebrand Return series of quests will span throughout the 6.x series overall, and 6.3 is not the end of the series. He says it'll get, quote, worse, end quote, as it always does. The weapon will be badass looking, which is of course different from the silly and comedic nature of the story, so please rest assured. The strengthening weapons in the future will have visual effects attached, end quote. So that was all to do with Hildebrand weapons. So Yoshi P has said here directly that they will look badass and they're not going to be silly and comedic. So the part of you that wanted those silly little weapons, unfortunately that's not going to happen. They are going to be the more, look at me, I'm glowy and amazing sort of thing. So I'm both disappointed and happy at the same time with that. Personally, I was kind of hoping for a big old frying pan that glowed, but maybe next time, huh? Maybe next time. Maybe I can do that as like Sky Steel tools or something. So the 6.3 trial is one of the last things they really talk about. So it says it happens during the main story. That's not really information we didn't know. On the extreme version, it has a brain training element that are slightly different than Barbarici. There are also personal mechanics and other types of mechanics mixed into it as well. It will be a classic battle. So that sounds like a yikes. I can't wait to see that in Party Finder. Fantastic stuff. Regarding new crystal conflict stages, oh, I didn't see this. We'll show how it's done through live footage on the live letter. So they're going to show us the new crystalline conflict stage. Since the development name is House Full of Tricks, quote, it's going to have a lot of gimmicks, more so than the Volcanic Heart stage, but in return the ratio of a gimmick triggered in stage will not be as frequent, so this is made easier for players. That's good. So, like, if you've ever done the volcanic stage, basically the volcano erupts, fire goes everywhere, and it happens quite regularly. Sometimes you just get killed by the environment when you're trying to, finish a fight with another player. So at least this one's going to happen a little less. That's a good thing, I think. For example, a portion of the stage will suddenly get lifted up, or sometimes you even see coins get thrown all around. Of course, they did show sort of like Kagane market aspect to the new map. So, maybe Yojimbo will make an appearance. Who knows? I need more Jim in my life. And then onto the miscellaneous section here. The addition of spearfishing and water diving in old areas this time are developed and added by the devs themselves and not instructed from Yoshi P. Yeah, that was a recent thing, wasn't it? Where they said they wanted to bring the old world to life, so they worked beyond what they normally would and added the stuff. Very cool. I'd love to see more open world, old world areas get newer stuff added to them, especially diving. That it adds so much to the game, it really does. Yoshi P has mentioned that you are more than welcome to dive in the areas of Upper Lenosha and take screenshots without doing spearfishing if you don't want to, as well as share those screenshots on your social networks account. When you do so, the staff members will definitely get motivated and work on the rest of the areas. Basically, these people have a passion for developing content that goes way beyond what they're told to do so by their producer and director. So if they see people enjoying this stuff and going, wow, look at these amazing areas, and posting this and tagging Square Enix employees in these beautiful pictures, landscapes and stuff, they're going to be encouraged to do more of that. So go ham is basically what we're saying here. And finally, while this cannot be told in detail just yet, Yoshi P has been hard at work working with other companies so that players can go, wow, they're going all the way out of there to do that for both in-game and external activities. Details will be made public once next year comes, which is soon, TM, so please look forward to it, end quote. So that was the final point. So we've got a lot of things in store for Final Fantasy XIV. It's going to be exciting. Hopefully that last point is in reference to the potentiality of a crossover. Hopefully it's Kingdom Hearts. That would be like the biggest drop, wouldn't it? But we can only speculate. And just when you thought that things were wrapping up a little bit later in the day, as I was actually putting this video together, we actually got some more info, this time from 4Gamer and Dengeki Online. So I think I might as well just put this in here as well. Thank you once again to Aluna Minori. Exactly the same post, just some updates. I thought this was extra stuff. So apparently there were questions about snowboards. Yoshi P himself has mentioned in the past that he's a snowboarder and has, a keen interest. So he says he has always wanted to make it a reality in some capacity, but if he was to create a game that emulates the machines seen in arcades, players will just be done after 2 or 3 plays, Yoshi P thinks. But since there are gatherers and crafters, he does want them to have them to collect high quality core materials and have the players be able to create their own board, and he does want to make that a possibility. He does want the snowboard graphics to be customizable and have players' characters carry it around. He's trying to study the various ways of play as a possibility to create various content, but a firm decision to make those kind of games and a task that is required to implement them will take quite some time. There are a lot of requests of wanting to play minigames from other Final Fantasy titles in 14, but it's common to see materials here and there saying that this isn't geared for an MMORPG game, so to resolve this issue, it's going to be a challenge. Yoshi P also says he's been constantly struggling in his mind to respond to such requests coming from players, and he wants to be able to fulfill players' requests while trying to develop something that everyone can enjoy from a different angle. So the snowboard thing is something I've requested before as well, mostly from playing Final Fantasy VII, which obviously debuted the Gold Saucer, and Final Fantasy XIV has a Gold Saucer based on 7's Gold Saucer and has minigames. So in my mind, you don't really have to suspend disbelief or anything like that. You've got the roller coaster missions where you shoot targets. It can't be that hard, right? someone who doesn't know anything about coding, i.e. me, it can't be that hard to implement the snowboard minigame, right? I would love to see that in a game. But the idea of creating and like carrying boards around, I never even considered that. That would be really cool to have snowboards. And if they can do snowboards, then they could do skateboards, right? I think that would be really, really awesome. So who knows? Maybe they will go with that. So apparently there's questions about the implementation of Blitzball. We might as well talk about that. On the subject of popular requests for Blitzball, when Yoshi P thought of trying to implement this into an MMORPG, he thinks that if he just ports the game from Final Fantasy X over, players would just stop playing after 1 or 2 times. It's also possible that it'll turn out to be a game where players won't be able to take it easy playing a versus match that lasts around 20 minutes per match, and even if they're prepared if they prepared rewards for the minigame, it may end up a game where the matching function won't work really as intended. There was an attempt to approach this differently, and they also had an idea where they can create a team simulation-like system and allow players to scout for players scattering around Aetherius, train their parameters and have them participate in matches while the player itself goes for an adventure. While Yoshi P thinks it's an interesting idea and he did think of starting to work on the planning for implementation of this, even if it does get implemented, it's going to risk players saying, this isn't Blitzball at all. And since Yoshi P does love team battle simulation genre, so while the idea itself isn't completely possible, getting told that's not it is going to make him end up sulking, and if he does move forward with a creation, that sport can just be called something else and doesn't have to be Blitzball. So, roundabout, way of saying that he doesn't think that he would be able to do the original Blitzball game justice, and if they just did a direct port across, and he doesn't think that it would have the right effect. Yeah, it's a good. Those are good points, honestly. I think people asking for Blitzball probably just want more of Final Fantasy X, and I don't blame them. It was a fantastic game, and Blitzball, to some degree, I enjoyed as well. But can they make it unique for Final Fantasy XIV? It's questionable. It's like the snowboard thing, isn't it? Like, how do you do it justice? And then finally, we have the ID, the name Lapis Monalis, which is of course the new dungeon's name in 6.3. While there isn't elements prepared to make players feel troubled for the new dungeon, it's not just a snowy mountain. There is one mechanic that can be quite peculiar when you go against the first boss, i.e. the boss at the beginning. Please be careful the moment the earth rumbles, he says. Yoshi P thinks it's better for healers to properly set skills that they don't normally use. Oh, what, like rescue and things? Because I use that all the time. Please be careful not to end up with situations where you go, oh shit, I didn't set this action in my hotbar. Apparently that's a direct quote. Each of the bosses are interesting in a way that mechanics are quite elaborate. So Yoshi P thinks that the dungeon is very well done. As usual, the content will be available in Content Support and Trust, and this will be related to the main story, and you can go through the dungeon with characters related to its story. So yeah, once again, I'll have those like extra pieces of dialogue and stuff. But that pretty much wraps up the extra information. Some good pieces of information to take from. I'm a little bit, it's hard not to be disappointed by the fact that they're kind of putting other mini games into the game because they don't feel like they can do it justice. I say they just go for it, and they're going to upset somebody either way. And at least if they give it a go, at least in my opinion, I think that's better than just saying we can't do it. But we'll see, right? We will see. The hope is not gone for snowboarding and Blitzball. So I'm excited for the live letter. I will have a summary tomorrow on all of that information. But thank you to Aluna Minori and the rest of the translation team over on the Final Fantasy XIV subreddit Discord. Obviously, the original source information is from Famitsu and lots of other media outlets. If I just link you the Discord, they do actually provide the source links in that as well. So go over to the subreddit Discord, Have a read through if you think I've missed anything or you want to comment and talk about this. And I'll see you all next time. I'm so excited for 6.3. Every little nugget of information is like gold to me. All right, have a good one. Bye-bye.